All right, let's take a look at the 2018 Denver Broncos off-season and look and see what did they do to try to improve their roster from last season. Last season was a rough year for the Broncos, and let's see what they did to try to have a better year next season. First of all, let's look at the cap situation. They had $26 million to work with at the beginning of the offseason. You can see they spent quite a bit of that. They've got about $6.5 million left as of August of 2018. Before we look and see how they spent that money, let's look at some of the players that I thought might get cut to increase the amount of cap space that they had. Emmanuel Sanders is a guy that I thought was at least at risk of getting cut. You can see he had huge numbers for Denver for the first few years he was there. 1,400 yards, 9 touchdowns, 1,100 yards, 6 touchdowns, still 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns. But then last season, he played in 12 games and only had 555 yards and 2 touchdowns. So a big drop-off there for Emmanuel Sanders. And once again, last year was his 30-year-old season. So, is he sort of starting to fall off the cliff? Or was it just simply that Trevor Siemian was not decent as a quarterback? Or was it both? But I thought he was a guy that would at least be in some jeopardy of getting cut, because he would save a few million, and they'd be able to save even more if they traded him. But so far the Broncos have decided to hold on to him. So Emmanuel Sanders should be back in 2018. Zach Kerr is another guy that I thought was at risk of getting cut because he would save $1.4 million. He's a backup defensive end, only played in 11 games, did have 19 tackles, which is not terrible for a backup defensive end. Half a sack. So far, it looks like they're gonna bring Zach Kerr back. Aqib Talib is another guy that I thought would likely be gone. He's not bad. He didn't play badly last season, but the fact that they have Chris Harris and they have Bradley Roby, and they needed the space, it was pretty apparent that the writing was on the wall for Aqib Talib. They traded him to the Rams, and they were able to save about $11 million in space by trading him. So that was a pretty big deal for the Broncos to be able to open up that space. Menelik Watson was another guy that I thought was at risk. He would save at least $3 million by cutting him. He was strong in run blocking, but really struggled in pass protection. Really has had trouble with injuries his entire career. So that was a guy that I thought might be gone, but so far it looks like they might bring Menelik Watson back. All right, let's talk about who were the unrestricted free agents on offense for the Broncos. Cody Latimer might be the biggest name. He's a wide receiver, maybe the number 3, number 4 wide receiver there for Denver. He had 287 yards in 11 games, but he had never had 100 yards receiving in a season before this past season. Was in the final year of his rookie contract. He had been drafted in the 2nd round. So, when you spend a 2nd round pick on a guy, you're hoping to get a lot more than 100 yards out of him, but Denver couldn't even get that until this past season. But the Giants decided, hey, look, 1 year, 287 yards, let's take a risk, and they gave him a 1 year, $2.5 million deal. So, Cody Latimer won't be back with the Broncos next season. Virgil Green was a starting tight end there for the Broncos. He was finishing a 3-year deal worth $2.8 million per year. Never has had 250 yards receiving in his career, and instead averages about 200 yards per season. But the Chargers decided, hey, look, we'll go ahead and sign him for 3 years and $8.6 million. You know, he's a good blocker for sure. But I don't know. You know, 3 years, $8.6 million. That's not cheap for a guy who doesn't get, 250 yards. And isn't a huge receiving threat. Donald Stevenson was a free agent. He was the right tackle, starting right tackle there for the Broncos. Had quite a lot of downs. Some ups, quite a lot of downs. Didn't play all that well. He played on a 1-year deal worth $2.5 million. Broncos decided that he did not play nearly well enough to bring him back, and Cleveland decided to bring him in. Gave him another 1-year, $2.5 million deal. I guess he'll be the swing tackle there in Cleveland. Alan Barber really struggled in his contract year, especially when he played at tackle. The offensive line really was a problem for the Broncos last season. 33 years old, not a spring chicken anymore. He finished a 3-year deal that was worth about $1.45 million per year. So, he was getting paid backup money, and not even, top backup money. So it's not horribly surprising that, when asked to play, didn't really do all that well. 33 years old, probably done. Jamal Charles is a big name. A big name that was a free agent. 31-year-old running back, but still averaged 4.3 yards a carry. Strong, especially for a guy coming off some knee injuries that were pretty serious. He played on a 1-year, $2.5 million contract last year. Only had 296 yards rushing. Didn't get a ton of touches. Played in 14 games. But, he hadn't played much at all the 2 previous seasons because of, like I said, injuries. But, 5 out of the 6 seasons before that, he had 1,000 yards rushing. So, Jamal Charles was one of the best running backs in the league until he started to really struggle with knee injuries. So, I was glad to see him bounce back, put up some decent numbers in yards per carry, get an okay contract. But unfortunately, so far, it doesn't look like anyone wanted to bring him back in 2018, and the Broncos certainly haven't thus far. Brock Osweiler. Let's look at what Osweiler did. Osweiler is such an interesting case, because he played with Denver in 2015. Peyton Manning had been injured, had been hurt, struggling, didn't play very well. So Brock Osweiler plays in 8 games, had 1,900 yards, which is pretty good. 10 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, not bad. 61% completion percentage. He played all right, played fairly well. Then Denver wanted to bring him back because Peyton Manning retired. And then instead, Osweiler decided to sign with the Texans. The Broncos felt betrayed, it seemed. because he ended up going to sign with the Texans. The Texans gave him 4 years and 72 million. Okay, huge contract, $18 million average. Gave him 37 million guaranteed. And then he crapped the bed, threw 15 touchdowns and 16 interceptions, 59% completion percentage, and he ended up getting cut after one season. Well, I actually got traded to the Browns, and then they cut him. They traded him to the Browns the Browns wanted a draft pick, and the Texans just wanted to get rid of him. And then the Browns cut him, so they basically bought a draft pick from the Texans. And then he goes back to Denver, and last season played in 6 games, did not do any better than he did with Houston. 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 55% completion percentage. And now he will be a backup in Miami. So, but you know what? He got paid, right? So, got $37 million from the Texans. It was good to be Brock Osweiler. Had one decent season, and he'll be comfortable for the rest of his life. Defensive unrestricted free agents. Who were the defensive players on the Broncos that were free to go anywhere they wanted? Well, Todd Davis. Todd Davis played very well, okay, for the 2nd year in a row. He played last season on a 2nd-round tender, which was worth, about 2.7, a little under $3 million a year. He's an inside linebacker, 82 tackles this past season, 96 tackles the season before in 2016. And so Denver decided we need to lock this guy up, gave him 3 years, $15 million. Todd Davis will be back with the Broncos in 2018. Jared Crick is another free agent. You can see his numbers there. 56 tackles in 2014. 53 tackles again in 2016 with the Broncos. 3 sacks. Very good. Very productive defensive end. Had never missed a game in those previous 3 seasons. But then in 2017, missed the whole year due to a back injury he had to have surgery on. He's going to be 29. The Broncos have a couple of other guys who are both younger. Was coming off of a 2-year deal worth an average of $2 million per year. So far, it doesn't look like Jerry Crick has been able to find any work. So that's a little sad, actually, but he does not look like he'll be back with Denver. Let's summarize these changes to the Denver roster. We talked about the guys who are free agents, the guys who will be coming back, the guys who won't. Let's just go ahead and summarize what did Denver do to their roster. Well, for one, they got rid of Trevor Siemian and Brock Osweiler. They'll both be gone. Osweiler will be a backup in Miami. Siemian will be gone as well. Case Keenum, starter there in Denver. He played last year with Minnesota. Had an awesome year. 3,500 yards passing. 22 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 67% completion. This is such a great story, actually. Minnesota was going to play Sam Bradford. They brought in Case Keenum. He was paid very little money. Okay, he was expected to be a backup to Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford ends up getting injured again, which wasn't, I guess it shouldn't have been a huge surprise. But anyway, Case Keenum blows up, has a huge year, best year of his career, and then now is going to get paid $2 years, $36 million with the Broncos, $25 million guaranteed. I'm rooting for this guy. Actually, he's from my hometown. I'm from Austin, and he played at Lake Travis High School, I believe. Nonetheless, wherever he's from, I like Case Keenum. I do think Case Keenum. I know he's from Texas for sure. he just seems like a good guy. And he was an exciting player to watch last year. I really would love to see him do well there in Denver. So I'm rooting for Case Keenum. Running back C.J. Anderson out. That was so surprising to me. I don't know how you Broncos fans feel. Leave some comments in this video. Tell me what you thought about cutting C.J. Anderson. Saved $4.5 million, but my God, he had 1,000 yards rushing last season. Has always had over 4 yards a carry. I was very, very surprised. Very surprised they cut C.J. Anderson. Yeah, it saved $4.5 million, but I'm just blown away. He ended up signing a 1-year, $1.7 million deal with Carolina. So, I mean, no one wanted to give him $4.5 million, okay? I mean, I guess he was overpaid, but 1,000 yards rusher with 4 yards a carry, man, the whole across the board, I was surprised. Jamal Charles was a backup. They have not decided to bring him back. Instead, they decided to bring in Royce Freeman, drafted him in the 3rd round, and David Williams drafted him in the 7th round. Royce Freeman, I'm hopeful. I think that, he'll be a solid player, a good addition to the Broncos. It's hard to say, though, that he'll be, a step up, an improvement in his rookie year over C.J. Anderson. It's not easy for a guy to get 800 yards, 4.7 yards a carry, 1,000 yards, 4.1 yards. That's not going to be easy. So, but it shouldn't be a huge drop-off, though. And there are Jamal Charles' numbers. Huge numbers from 2009 to 2014. But, played only 8 games in those 2 seasons in 2015 and 2016. Played all right last season. At wide receiver, Benny Fowler, gone. Number 3 wide receiver. Cody Latimer, gone. Number 4 wide receiver. So you definitely lost some depth there in Denver at receiver. Latimer had 287 yards last season, but before that had never been a big factor. Fowler had 350 yards and 3 touchdowns in 2017. So, those are guys, you're going to have to replace that production. What did Denver do? Well, they drafted Cortland Sutton in the 2nd round. A lot of people were very bullish on him. Thinks that he's going to be a great player. We'll see. And Deshaun Hamilton drafted him in the 4th round. So, are these guys going to be able to come in right away and really contribute to the team and pick up some yards? We will see. We will see. At tight end, Virgil Green is gone, but, he only had about 200 yards a season. A.J. Derby also gone. Had 224 yards in 9 games before he was released and claimed by Miami. I was a bit surprised they let Darby go in the middle of the year last year. How are they going to try to replace these guys? Well, they brought in Matt Lacoste, Brian Parker. These guys have 4 career catches between them. So I don't know if that is going to really get the job done there at tight end. Jake Butt will be back this season. He was a 5th round pick in 2017, but had torn his ACL. He was supposed to be a great player, but he ended up not playing last year. So, if he's healthy, that could be really good, but once again, he's coming back from an ACL injury that kept him out a lot longer than I think people may have thought, but they wanted to be safe with him. They also drafted Troy Fumagalli this year in the 5th round. It will be interesting to see how does Denver do at the tight end position. At tackle, Donald Stevenson was gone. Like I said, he didn't play that great. Was the swing tackle, first guy off the bench. They brought in Jared Veldheer, who was the starting tackle, I believe, with Arizona. That should help that should help with the offensive line. It's certainly an upgrade, I would think. At guard, Alan Barber is gone. He was a backup player. They brought in Jeremiah Patasi, J.J. Dillman. They drafted Sam Jones. Patasi and Dillman are just sort of reserve players, weren't big starters, but I don't think they brought them in to become starters. So overall, holding steady there at guard and center. On defense, this is the real big addition to the Broncos roster. Well, of course, Case Keenum, that's maybe the biggest. But then on defense, Bradley Chubb, that's the big name, the first-round pick, defensive end. Huge. I think this is the Broncos have got to be excited. To have Von Miller on one side and Bradley Chubb on the other, that is just, you got to be feeling like a kid in a candy store. Defense is going to be good. The defense is going to be good this year for the Broncos. They also have Kashad Lyons coming in, but he was just more of a practice squad guy. Clinton McDonald was a part-time starter in Tampa Bay. He split time with Chris Baker next to Gerald McCoy. So Clinton McDonald is a good player. You can see Clinton McDonald's numbers there on the screen. 29 tackles, 5 sacks. Those are solid numbers. For an interior lineman to get 5 sacks, that is solid. So I like this pickup for the Broncos. I'm really going to have a good defensive line. Deshaun Williams has been mostly a practice squad guy, so not a huge upgrade there. Linebacker Josie Jewell, 4th round pick, and Keyshawn Berea, 6th round pick. So these are 2 linebackers that they drafted to try to provide some depth there at linebacker. At corner, you have Aqib Talib out. That is a pretty big loss. But he is getting older, but he's still solid player. So to lose Aqib, but you have 2 really good corners. So it's with Chris Harris and Bradley Roby. So it's not like it's a devastating loss, but it's a loss. There's no way around it. It's a loss. But to bring in Isaac Yiadom, okay, 3rd round pick. We'll see how he pans out, but that could be some, maybe he'll win that nickel job. We'll see. He's not going to be Aqib Talib in his first year, but Aqib Talib is on the way down. Yiadom's on the way up. So, in this year, it'll be interesting to see how does the secondary do. But you know what? Heck, when you got, Chubb on one side and Von Miller on the other side, maybe I can't cover guys, but hey, Yiadom might be able to get the job done. Because I just don't think that opposing quarterbacks are going to have a ton of time to be throwing the ball. Tremaine Brock they brought in. He's a reserve corner. And C.J. Smith is another reserve player. At safety, they brought in Sua Cravens. Very interesting story. He basically was going to quit playing football. He had some kind of, emotional breakdown or something. I don't really know the exact story. Sua Cravens, though, didn't play for a whole year with the Redskins, was contemplating walking away from football. He was an exciting player. I remember when he came out into the draft, I was hoping that, I'm a Falcons fan, I was hoping the Falcons were gonna draft him because they needed a safety. Sua Cravens has got a lot of skill, so we'll see, what he's able to do there in Denver. So overall, I'll tell you, I think Denver is gonna be a hell of a team this year. I really do. Because although they didn't really upgrade much at the skill positions, okay, and I really don't know about cutting C.J. Anderson, but, overall, Case Keenum should be a huge upgrade over Trevor Siemian and Brock Osweiler. I'm very bullish. You know, I know it was one season, and he had good receivers there in Minnesota. You know, but look, you have decent receivers in Denver too. I'm really, really hopeful. I'm really optimistic on Case Keenum. If he can turn around the Denver offense, and then with those two guys on the defensive end, rushing the quarterback, Von Miller and Bradley Chubb, you have a very, very strong secondary. Brought back Todd Day. I'm excited, and I think, you know, I'm not a Broncos fan, but I think it'll be exciting to watch. I love good defense, actually, and I think most really true football fans, not just the casual fan, but the really die-hard football fans, love good defense, and the Broncos are going to have a good defense this year. I like them to win the division, actually. I really do. You know, the Chiefs have an incredible offense. They have got some really great playmakers at running back, wide receiver, tight end. They're going to be incredible, but their defense is going to be horrible. And, you know, look, at the end of the day, when you play Denver, it is not going to be easy to score points. If a quarterback doesn't have time to throw the ball, the wide receivers can't get open. They have certain routes. They got to run 6 yards and then make a cut or do whatever. You know, if the quarterback is on his back all day, he's just not going to have time for the wide receiver to make his break in the route and get open. It's going to be hard to run the ball. It's going to be tough. Even with the good offense, you know, it will be tough to play Denver this year. I really think so. And the Chargers were good, but I don't think the Chargers have the same talent that Denver does. Denver's got a good chance to win this division. Now, are they going to be good enough to, you know, compete with teams like Jacksonville or Pittsburgh or New England? I don't know. Anything is possible. Anything is possible, but if I was a Denver Bronco fan, I would be optimistic about this season. If you like this video, please click subscribe, because we are going to have some great videos coming up. At the end of the preseason, we're going to break down the roster of all 32 teams. Each week, we're going to preview the upcoming week's games, and then in the middle of the week, we'll review the previous Sunday's games. We are going to have some of the best coverage of the NFL on YouTube, so make sure you click subscribe because you don't want to miss it.